In the early 1900s, as large ships from Italy arrived at the bustling New York harbor, the Irish families on board carried nothing luxurious. There was no fine wine, no white tablecloths, no imported olive oil. They arrived with empty hands and only a fragile belief that they could survive. Life in a foreign land was harsh, the city loud and crowded, and there was no room for the weak. Every man, woman, and child had to fight every day to prove they deserved to live, to work, and to eat like human beings. In cramped streets like Little Italy, the small kitchens of these immigrant families became a hub of resilience and creativity. With only a few coins in hand, mothers learned to stretch scraps of food into nourishing dinners, transforming a few potatoes, a handful of flour, or some tomatoes into meals that filled both stomachs and hearts. Each boiling pot on the stove carried more than just food. It carried hope, determination, and the spirit of family. In these kitchens, pasta was never a luxury or a fancy dish for display. It was life itself, a way to feed the family, maintain tradition, and build a culinary culture that would last for generations. Stepping into Little Italy in 1903, one could feel the rhythm of daily life intertwined with the scent of tomatoes and flour, the sound of water simmering, and the image of hardworking hands kneading dough, stirring sauces, and preparing meals with care. Here, pasta was more than sustenance. It was survival, pride, and a story of hope and perseverance. Each dish told of families who, despite being far from home, preserved their identity, nourished their loved ones, and transformed simple ingredients into both nourishment and legacy. Pasta in that small kitchen was not just food, it was life, it was resilience, and it was the heartbeat of a community that refused to give up. In the cramped, smoky kitchens of Little Italy, Italian mothers stood over charcoal stoves, their hands busy stirring simmering pots of crushed tomatoes, minced garlic, and a splash of inexpensive oil. They did not cook for luxury or for indulgence. They cooked for survival, for the warmth of a full stomach, and for the simple joy of feeding their children after a long day of work. Every meal carried the weight of necessity but also the tenderness of care. Macaroni with garlic and tomato sauce, a handful of pasta tossed with a spoonful of bright red sauce became the centerpiece of countless dinners. Children jostled for the last noodle, their laughter and shouts filling the narrow, crowded apartments, while the aroma of cooking tomatoes drifted through the halls. There was no basil, no parmesan, no elaborate presentation, just food prepared with patience, attention, and love. Each bite was nourishment, not only for the body but also for the soul, a small victory in the relentless struggle of immigrant life. These simple meals were more than just sustenance. They were a tangible reminder of identity and heritage, a connection to a homeland left behind. Even with little more than a few coins to spend, these mothers stretched ingredients to their limit, transforming humble staples into satisfying and comforting dishes. Pasta became a symbol of resilience. A pot of macaroni could feed a family for days, while the steam rising from the pot, the red sauce clinging to every strand, and the sound of children slurping noodles created moments of joy in an otherwise harsh, unforgiving environment. Every stir of the sauce, every pinch of salt, was an act of care, a small declaration that life, despite its hardships, could still be nourished, celebrated, and shared. Even when resources were scarce, the creativity and resourcefulness of these families shone through. A few cloves of garlic could transform a plain dish into something fragrant and appetizing. Stale bread could be toasted and sprinkled over pasta, mimicking the luxurious parmesan they could rarely afford. Each meal was a lesson in making the most of what was available, in finding beauty and satisfaction in simplicity. These dishes, humble as they were, carried the stories of endurance, hope, and ingenuity. They taught children that survival was intertwined with family, that food was a medium of love, and that even in poverty, there was dignity in creating something that could bring comfort. Simple meals like macaroni with garlic and tomato were not just food. They were a lifeline, a source of warmth, and a testament to the determination of a people far from home. They were the beginning of a culinary legacy that would flourish for generations, proving that even the most basic ingredients, handled with care, patience, and love, could provide more than nourishment. They could sustain a spirit, preserve a culture, and warm hearts in the coldest of circumstances. In every simmering pot there was hope, and in every shared plate there was life. In the small, crowded kitchens of Little Italy, creativity was born out of necessity. Ingredients were scarce, coins were few, and every scrap of food mattered. Yet in these humble conditions, Italian immigrant families discovered the remarkable ability to transform the simplest elements into meals that were both nourishing and memorable. Each dish was a testament to resourcefulness, a dance between scarcity and imagination. Ravioli in light tomato sauce, reserved for Sundays or rare celebrations, was a perfect example of this ingenuity. Every raviolo was carefully handmade, rolled thin on floured wooden tables, and filled with whatever was available: soft ricotta, leftover bits of meat, or a combination of vegetables. Mothers and daughters worked side by side, pressing the edges with fingertips, while the subtle aroma of simmering tomato sauce filled the room. It was a meal that required patience, effort, and a keen eye for detail. Yet the joy it brought to a family gathered together was immeasurable. Even on days when money was tight, these families found ways to create flavors that transcended their limited resources. Pasta e fagioli, a simple combination of beans and pasta, simmered slowly with onions, garlic, and sometimes a bit of pork, became a comforting staple. What might seem ordinary to outsiders was elevated through timing, seasoning, and care. Every ingredient had purpose. The beans softened over hours of gentle heat, the pasta cooked just right, and the flavors melded into a soup that was hearty, satisfying, and rich in warmth despite the lack of luxury. In every spoonful, children could taste the ingenuity of their mothers, the knowledge that even the most ordinary items could carry the essence of home. Another example of creativity born from simplicity was penne aglio e olio, a dish that could feed a family with little more than garlic, oil, and pasta. In the hands of skilled cooks, these minimal ingredients transformed into a fragrant, golden feast. The sizzling garlic filled the air with a rich aroma that lifted spirits, while the pasta absorbed every drop of oil, turning each bite into something silky, flavorful, and sustaining. Even dishes like pasta with anchovies and toasted breadcrumbs, known as the poor man's parmesan, showcased how imagination could turn basic staples into a meal that felt indulgent. Anchovies dissolved into oil, breadcrumbs toasted to golden perfection, and together they coated warm pasta in a combination of crunch, salt, and umami that made children laugh and adults savor every bite. These dishes were proof that creativity did not require wealth. It required care, skill, and a willingness to see potential in the simplest things. Every meal told a story, not only of survival, but also of pride, resourcefulness, and the power of imagination. In Little Italy, the art of transforming scarcity into sustenance became a defining feature of daily life, a celebration of ingenuity that left an indelible mark on the culture and cuisine of a community determined to thrive against all odds. From handmade ravioli to humble pasta e fagioli, each dish carried the unmistakable flavor of resilience and creativity, proving that even in the most modest kitchens, love and imagination could turn simplicity into magic. In the bustling streets of Little Italy, the flavors of both sea and land came together in ways that told the story of a people adapting to a new world. Italian immigrants who had once lived along the coasts of the Mediterranean carried, with them, not only memories, but also techniques, tastes, and the ingenuity to stretch every morsel into something extraordinary. When fresh fish appeared at the Fulton Fish Market or scraps of seafood could be bought for a few pennies, families transformed these humble ingredients into meals that bridged the gap between their old lives and the harsh realities of Boston and New York. A pot of pasta with fresh fish in tomato broth, simmered slowly with garlic, herbs, and the delicate essence of the sea, became a dish that nourished both body and soul. Children dipped torn pieces of bread into the vibrant red broth, savoring every drop, while adults savored the knowledge that even in scarcity, there could be richness and satisfaction. These dishes were never luxurious, but they carried the soul of the Mediterranean into cramped tenement apartments, filling homes with aroma, warmth, and connection to a distant homeland. Land-based meals, equally simple yet deeply satisfying, relied on the vegetables, herbs, and limited meats that families could afford or forage. Gnocchi with tomato sauce, for example, became a cornerstone of Sunday dinners, made from soft, tender dumplings of potatoes and flour. The sauce was minimal yet vibrant, often only crushed tomatoes, garlic, and a pinch of oregano, but the care in preparation turned it into something extraordinary. Similarly, pasta with fresh greens and garlic, such as orecchietti tossed with bitter dandelion or turnip greens, reflected the ability to find beauty and sustenance in the most humble of ingredients. Each leaf was carefully washed, boiled, and sautéed, then clung lovingly to the hand-rolled pasta, creating a meal that was both nutritious and deeply comforting. Italian immigrants also embraced the limited meats and scraps available to them, transforming them into rich, flavorful dishes. Stuffed shells filled with cheese and small portions of meat became a rare celebration, an occasion for neighbors to gather and share in the aroma of garlic, tomato, and bubbling cheese. Even small scraps of cured pork could be fried until crisp, mixed with peas, and tossed with farfalle, creating a vibrant, colorful meal that brought joy despite the scarcity of resources. Every dish was a testament to the belief that flavor and satisfaction did not rely on abundance, but on skill, patience, and respect for the ingredients at hand. From the sea to the land, Italian immigrants in Little Italy demonstrated that resilience could be tasted. Simple fish scraps became a fragrant tomato broth. A few potatoes and greens became gnocchi or orecchietti. Leftover meat was transformed into festive stuffed pasta. In every bite, families could reconnect with their heritage, celebrate small victories, and pass on a culinary legacy that honored both the flavors of their homeland and the ingenuity required to survive in a new one. Meals were more than nourishment. They were acts of love, memory, and defiance, proving that even in scarcity, food could carry a community through hardship and keep the spirit of a distant homeland alive. In the narrow, crowded streets of Little Italy, survival was never a solitary endeavor. Italian immigrant families faced not only scarcity and cold, but also the unrelenting pressures of a new and often unwelcoming world. Yet amidst the hardship, a remarkable sense of resilience and community spirit emerged, binding neighbors together in ways that were both practical and profoundly human. Every meal prepared in those tiny kitchens was a labor of love, a small act of defiance against the harsh realities of tenement life. Mothers and grandmothers, standing over hot stoves, stirred pots with care, not only to fill empty stomachs but to nourish hope, pride, and family unity. Even a simple dish of penne aglio e olio, cooked with little more than garlic, oil, and pasta, carried the weight of shared effort and ingenuity. The scent that drifted through hallways served as an unspoken invitation. It was a signal that someone cared, that the community endured together. In Little Italy, meals became more than sustenance. They were a language of connection. When neighbors brought over scraps, herbs, or a few extra eggs, it was an exchange rooted in mutual respect and survival. Children grew up witnessing the rhythm of cooperation, learning that sharing a meal meant more than filling the stomach. It meant affirming bonds, offering comfort, and keeping traditions alive. Pasta e fagioli, a dish made from humble beans and pasta, exemplified this spirit. Often cooked in large pots to feed extended families, it symbolized generosity, patience, and the belief that even the smallest efforts could sustain many. Families huddled together in the glow of the stove, scraping every drop from chipped bowls, laughing and finding joy amidst scarcity. It was here that resilience took physical form. A thick soup of beans and pasta became a metaphor for endurance, proving that life's difficulties could be softened by care, creativity, and shared labor. Even during celebrations or special occasions, the same spirit was evident. Handmade ravioli, stuffed shells, and baked seafood pasta were prepared with meticulous attention, often using what others might have considered scraps. These dishes were a reminder that even in poverty, dignity could be preserved and shared. The preparation itself strengthened familial and communal bonds, as mothers, daughters, and neighbors worked side by side, passing down techniques, recipes, and stories from one generation to the next. It was a quiet rebellion against the isolation and fear imposed by poverty, an assertion that despite limited resources, the community could create abundance in spirit and joy. Through all of this, the resilience and communal spirit of Little Italy's immigrants became inseparable from their food. Each bowl of gnocchi, each plate of orecchietti with greens, each serving of pasta with anchovies and breadcrumbs was a testament to ingenuity, care, and unwavering determination. Even as the world outside remained indifferent, families found warmth, connection, and identity within their kitchens and among their neighbors. This resilience was not just a survival tactic, it was a philosophy, a way of life that elevated simple ingredients into symbols of hope, belonging, and cultural pride. In Little Italy, every meal told a story of people who refused to surrender to adversity, proving that even in the harshest circumstances, a community united by love, creativity, and shared effort could not only survive, but thrive. Over 100 years have passed, and streets like Mulberry Street no longer carry the same bustling energy of the past. Yet the warmth of those simmering pots, the heart poured into every bowl of pasta, still lingers in the meals we enjoy today. For Italian immigrants, pasta was never about luxury, fine dining, or elaborate feasts. It was something far deeper and more enduring. Each simple dish represented hope, a quiet assertion of dignity, and a way to preserve the essence of home even when far from it. The act of preparing pasta, from the hand-rolled dough to the fragrant sauces, was a ritual of survival, a tangible connection to family, culture, and identity. Every bite carried the stories of perseverance, creativity, and love that had sustained generations through hardship, scarcity, and uncertainty. It was a reminder that true richness does not come from opulence, but from the care and intention with which something is made. From the simplest macaroni with tomato and garlic to the comforting warmth of pasta e fagioli, these dishes told tales of a community that refused to be defeated, that turned scraps and humble ingredients into nourishment for both body and spirit. After learning their stories, you will never look at a bowl of spaghetti the same way again. It becomes more than a meal. It is a symbol of endurance, identity, and the profound human capacity to create meaning and connection through shared effort. And if you wish to continue the journey, to uncover the untold stories of immigrant communities across America, each recipe, each dish, offers a window into lives shaped by courage, resilience, and the enduring power of love.